Hi, and welcome to Natives in Tech 2022. My name is Aaron Lamontis. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm the head of diversity at SHIFT. And we're a proud sponsor of this year's Natives in Tech conference. SHIFT is a same-day delivery service based in Birmingham, Alabama, which is the land of the Muscogee Nation. We service most of the U.S. and have team members located throughout the country, some of which you'll meet through this conference today. SHIP has an aspiration to build the most diverse tech company in the entire country. And that aspiration starts with honoring, celebrating, and investing in the first people of this continent, as well as Indigenous communities across the world. As such, we thank you for being here, and we hope you enjoy today's fantastic lineup of presenters. Thank you.
Stongo istiamolga hayawat istijari obunaga obunahies. Mujinetadat pomajaligidari pom obunaga pom folida kawabagit. Iden gislagit moment abigomongit iden hizagathes. Ujihale abe ugalefa onze gohahani shawena onze goedeniha onze keonlaniha yupa onkwa on yuk a onda yuhe ha onfe onkati la de enga. So the translations for Muskogee and Yuchi words is today we lift up our ancestors, our languages, our cultures. We will learn from one another, and before we leave, we will be friends. So just wanted to open it up with the languages that I know, recognizing the different languages that my people speak, and always putting our language and our culture at the forefront, because for many years it was not allowed for that to happen. So it's very important when given the opportunity to do that. Next, I'd like to thank the organizers. So, Emanetalgi, Chamanechka, Marojige Jagesh. So, without the organizers, this conference wouldn't happen. And I think it's going to be a great conference with a lot of conversations. And so, thank you, conference organizers, in making it happen, as well as to our sponsors. So who am I? I am Muskogee, Yuchi, English, and Irish. I was born and raised in St. Petersburg, Florida, but I currently reside in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I helped to kickstart Natives in Tech in 2017 with a few other people. And I'm currently a senior software engineer at Spoonflower. And I've been working in software for the past 6 years in various capacities. I've been individual contributor, a dev lead, team lead, and a manager. So today's talk is Natives in Tech, Past, Present, and Future. And if you're not already familiar, you are here at the conference and listening to this talk. But Natives in Tech is a group of native technologists that are building free and open source software for native communities. So I'd like to start out with a bit of a story to kind of frame the discussion around what Natives in Tech is doing in the context of developing sovereignty in tech. So years ago, Bear and Rabbit were good friends, and Bear had invited Rabbit over to his dwelling to have dinner. And so when Rabbit arrived, Bear asked Rabbit to start making the beans. And when Rabbit started to add beans to the pot, they noticed that there wasn't any fat around to add to the beans, because that's what makes it taste better. And so Rabbit asked Bear where they could find fat. And Bear replied saying, "Oh, I can get that for you," and took a knife and cut a bit into himself, got some fat out, and put it into the beans. And they then had dinner, and they really enjoyed themselves. And the next night, Rabbit invited Bear over to eat at their dwelling. And so as Rabbit was beginning to make dinner the following night, Bear had arrived, and Rabbit was working on the beans. And Rabbit noticed that there wasn't any fat around to put into the beans, and they thought to themselves that they would do what Bear did the other day, and take some fat from themselves and put it into making the beans. And so Rabbit gets a knife, he begins to cut into his body, but instead of getting fat, he injures himself and screams out to Bear for help. Bear sees that he is injured and goes and finds a medicine person to help heal him. And Bear asks Rabbit, why did he decide to injure himself as they were making dinner? And Rabbit replied, "Well, I saw what you did the other day, and I thought that I could do it too." And Bear replies, there's things that I can do that you can't, and even things that you can do that I can't. And so we have to recognize our own skills and abilities in the things that we can do, and not be confused to think that any one person can do what another person or thing can do. So how does this relate to sovereignty in tech? Well, Natives in Tech was established around this idea that we Indigenous people, Native people, are the ones that can create the technology for our communities, and in ways that outside entities can't and probably shouldn't. And what I'm saying here, as it relates to the story between Bear and Rabbit, is that Native people have the skills, they have the experience, they have the social understanding already built in, growing up within the community. And in building technology, they can then apply their experience, their social knowledge to the technology, and it can be built in such a way that is truly reflective of, who they are and where they come from. Now, in comparison with outside entities, outside vendors, quote unquote big tech, they have their own motivations, they have their own interest, but which also might not align with what our community wants or needs. But in addition to that, they don't have the skills, they don't have the social understanding, they don't have the context of what it means to build technology for Native peoples. And so developing sovereignty in tech and developing technology in general, we should be very cognizant and aware of what we're building and how it's reflective of who we are and where we come from, but also that we are aware of and maybe even hesitant to work with outside entities because they don't have the wherewithal to do what Native technologists can do. So I think there's more ways in which we can improve this and make this better. But this is the premise for natives in tech, and for what a lot that we do in the organization is bringing up these ideas, because we aren't merely just consumers of technologies, we need to be producers of it as well, so that we can start to see technology that's truly reflective of who we are. And this is not a new story in the least. Over the centuries, we've been taken advantage of. Our ancestors, maybe even our relatives, have worked maybe with a university, or maybe they haven't. And maybe some entity has taken something from our community and put it in a university, or put it in a museum, or taken a story and then proceed to copyright it so that our community doesn't have the full rights to be able to reproduce that work. And so as this relates to developing sovereignty in tech, of course, Natives in Tech wants to build technology that serves Native communities. But it's also important that we understand that we don't make the same mistakes of the past. That if and when we decide to work with outside entities, we understand the trade-offs and the caveats that come with doing that. But also understanding that first and foremost, we want to be able to do this ourselves. We want to be able to create technology by ourselves and for ourselves, and not need any type of assistance in doing that. That's putting our sovereignty at the forefront. And so that technology can be any number of things. It can be a dictionary. It can be sharing cultural practices. Maybe it's just within the community. Maybe it's just with a group of people. But we have to be conscious and aware of how this technology is really reflective of who we are, but also making sure that it stays within our community and can't be abused by outside entities. And so Natives in Tech, as much as we want Native people to get into technology and take on those roles, we want them to also be considerate of how technology is impacting their community and how they can help to make technology impact their community in a more positive way. But of course, it's never that easy. And so there's many things that we are trying to do in order to improve the representation of Native people in tech so that we can have more broad, more deep discussions about sovereignty and how technology is helping us and how we can continue to use technology to improve things within our communities. So things that we're attempting to do, or what we've attempted to do in the past, what we're currently doing, and what we want to do in the future is educate more Native people in technology. So help them to find roles as software engineers or as hardware engineers, or really any kind of engineering as it pertains to computers. It can be cybersecurity, it can be DevOps, it can be any number of things. And we want to continue to grow representation in those areas. We also want to engage our communities. We want them to be aware of issues of sovereignty. So as I talked before about things related to museums and universities, that pertains to copyright, and many people maybe aren't aware of the copyright that is tied to artifacts or tied to creative pieces of art like stories from our communities, and to be aware that these things continue on into the future. So like, for example, when choosing a technology to create a dictionary, it's possible that we might use a book because we might need it as a resource to help create the dictionary that we want for our community better. But that dictionary might be copyright, with some other non-native entity. And so we have to be aware and understanding of these issues and engage our communities in them, as well as educate them as well in understanding what those issues mean, so that if we have to create a dictionary from scratch in the future, what does that entail, and what license do we want to put on it? What copyright, if any copyright, do we want to have on it so that it can be accessed from people in our community without any issues or problems? And discuss issues of sovereignty, just like we're doing now in the conference, like we've done within our Slack workspace. We want to continue to discuss these issues out in the open and get feedback from people, help people think through these issues that they face within their own communities, so people can understand, all the different ways in which, we're being impacted, by these issues of copyright and many other things, many other types of ownership that don't include us as being the originators or the true owners of this material. So all in all, it's really important that we develop a broad and deep ecosystem of Native technologists that are from different communities, that are from different nations, that then the community itself can reach out to them to so that they can explain these issues to their community in a way that their community understands. So as much as Natives in Tech wants to be at the forefront of these discussions, we obviously can't be the ones that reach out to every community and have the capacity to be able to consult and educate all these communities on these topics. there definitely needs to be broad representation throughout all the nations, and to have this expertise and have this knowledge and can speak on it for their community. So what have we done in the past to kind of further these different goals that we're trying to achieve? So, for example, what have we done in terms of education? So currently we have a GitHub repository. We've gotten up to 42 repositories or code projects of various kinds. We have our Natives in Tech website that's up there. We have a native-owned businesses repository, which we're currently working on and continuing to improve. We have an Indigimoji project that one of our members has created, Nick Saylor. We have a MMIW, Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women project as well, that increases awareness and knowledge and promotes awareness and knowledge of issues of MMIW to more people. So we have a lot of different and interesting projects, and hopefully different Native technologists are going through the projects, repositories, reading the source code, understanding how it works, running the projects on their own computers, seeing how the projects run in production, going to the nativesintech.org website and seeing how it runs. Those are forms of education. They might be a bit more, for each individual person to take on, but it is a way for people to learn, how to build different technologies using open source technologies that we use. So, things like React, things like JavaScript, things like Netlify CMS, all these different things that are available for us to use that are free and open source. And so if you wanted to replicate any number of our own projects, you can at any time. And so this is, I think, helpful education, but I think we can improve going forward. But this is, just an example of something that we've done in the past. So what have we done in terms of discussing? Well, we started our Slack workspace back in 2017, and now we have close to, probably more now than 212 Native technologists in there. And we discuss various issues, we discuss various topics. We will discuss things in the open, in general channels, or we can discuss things in direct messages to each other. It's really a great space to just be open and to share ideas and thoughts about varying things, but also things related to sovereignty and how technology impacts us and how we should be using technology to help us. But in some cases, technology is hurting us in various ways. So how can we go about changing that? And there's obviously we have the conference, but outside of the conference, we like to use the Slack space to kind of connect with each other, and that's a great way for us to kind of discuss these topics. And what have we done in terms of engagement? We have various social media platforms. We have had in the past NIT meetups where just Native technologists get together and just discuss a topic that they want to talk about. It could be sovereignty, it could be just software, it could be anything related to open source, things of that nature. And over the years, we've been able to grow our social media following. We have almost 2,500 followers, and we are growing on LinkedIn as well as Facebook. And so in order to kind of get the word out on some of these things, we've used social media to do that, because in many cases, that's where our communities reside, or at least a lot of people within our communities probably have a Facebook. And so if we want to reach them and we want to discuss these issues, then we have to meet them where they are. And so using social media as a medium in order to do that helps get the messaging out there. So what are we doing currently? In terms of education, we've partnered with New Camp to provide a scholarship, and it's around $50,000 in total to people that want to go through New Camp's boot camp for learning technology, different technology stacks. So they have courses, or what we refer to as stacks, in different areas. We have front end, also back end, as well as database. And so this is a very important way in which we can help Native people who are interested in getting into technology to kind of take that leap and take advantage of this opportunity, so that they can grow their skills and with a pretty good probability be able to land a tech job after they complete any one of the courses that they want to work on. So if you're interested in doing this, we'll have links to the website for this, but if you just check out New Camp and Natives in Tech Scholarship, you should be able to find this. And it's a $50,000 pool of money, I guess, pool of funds to fund this. But the boot camp usually is around $1,000 or so dollars, maybe $2,000. And so, there's many people that can go through this this program if they just decide to do it. So we're very thankful being able to work with New Camp in terms of offering this scholarship and giving Native people an opportunity to expand into the technology field. What are we doing in terms of discussing? Well, we have the yearly conference where we discuss these various issues, and we have other various initiatives that Natives in Tech members have started. So we have someone within our community that started an initiative that we are putting our support behind, and that is the Apache Software Foundation, using their name and using Native imagery in a very stereotypical and way in terms of portraying Native people, but even more specifically, it's very stereotypical of Native people, but not necessarily Apache people. And so we want to, or we've begun starting the conversation in terms of how do we encourage the Apache Software Foundation to change their name. There's many other names out there. They don't have to use this name. At this point, it's just historical, just like many of the sports teams out there that eventually changed their name. So we think that it's really important for Native people to not just be represented in technology, but to also be respected within the field of technology. And so we're putting our support behind this initiative, and discussing it within our community as well, to see who is it impacting, and talking with Apache people specifically and listening to them and understanding how this impacts them as well. So we like discussing various topics that are important, and but also these can just be initiatives of the community itself. And so we are, as much as we have various initiatives, initiatives will also spring out from the community, which is great. And what are we doing in terms of engagement? We have the Lakota AI Code Camp that we recently had this past summer in South Dakota. And at this camp, we engaged with Lakota students in helping them to learn how to use AI models to then be able to identify medicinal plants using just their phone and the camera on their phone. So the students would take pictures of medicinal plants, and they would then create models to be able to identify those plants. And so it was a great opportunity for students who may not be familiar necessarily with using these different techniques to be able to learn them and to be able to apply them in a very cultural, significant way. So engaging different communities and giving them a path forward in learning these different skill sets is, another way in which we're engaging our communities. And we plan to have another code camp starting in for next summer as well. So what do we want to do moving forward? So in terms of education, we definitely want to write more articles around technology and how it impacts our communities. So we do have a blog, and we haven't used it maybe as much as we would like, but it would be great to write more articles on just various tech topics. An example might be, why do some tribal governments use a .org domain as opposed to a .gov domain? How does that come about? Why does it come about? And why might it be important, if being a tribal government, for it to be recognized as such, with on the internet? So it'd be cool to be able to write about these things and educate more people on these different topics that impact us within the work that we're doing. We want to develop bylaws that represent Native values. So in terms of educating, we're maybe educating ourselves in this instance. So we do have a set of bylaws. They are encoded using a protocol called Git, which is very common in software development. But we want to encode more Native values into those bylaws. So as much as it's great to see that we're using a software protocol in order to make changes and to make updates, we definitely want to encode more values into that as well. And in that process, hopefully we can educate other organizations and help them to learn how they might want to encode Native values into their bylaws. Obviously, we want to encourage more people to take advantage of the New Camp Scholarship. It's there for the taking if anyone is interested. And potential opportunity to get into the field of technology after completing it. So I think it's a great opportunity. And potentially have conference-like talks, I guess, year-round. Obviously a lot of work. We definitely need more support in order to be able to do that. But it would be great to be sponsored to have these talks, more frequently. What do we want to do in terms of discussing? Well, it's always been an idea to try to create different committees to talk about how we create standards for how we create applications. Just as we have committees for languages, in the field of software programming, there's committees for all kinds of things. There's committees that discuss, how do we, make requests in browsers? How do we add APIs to JavaScript? Well, it shouldn't just end there. We should have our own native committees formed of native technologists to discuss varying standards and, how we build apps that serve native peoples, how we build apps that work in places that don't have great network, all these things. So committees would be great to just discuss, in an open way, what a native app development looks like. So next, we want to create a license, so Indigenous Peoples license. There's currently many different open source licenses out there, like MIT and GPL, but we want something that speaks more to Indigenous peoples. And so there is a repo that's within our GitHub organization that kind of starts the discussion, but we'd like to solidify something maybe next year in terms of what is an Indigenous license, what does it look like, and how might we apply it to the code and the code projects that we create. We want to also continue to call out the organizations that are undermining our communities and not respecting our communities, such as the Apache Software Foundation. And we also want to continue to develop and strengthen our relationship with other organizations that reflect and align with our values. And what do we want to do in terms of engagement? We want to try to connect with our membership. We have over 212 at this moment native technologists in our Slack workspace. How do we engage them? How do we get them more involved? It's definitely a very critical question because there's a lot of knowledge there, there's a lot of experience, and we can learn a lot from just the people that are there. And but it takes time to cultivate those relationships and strengthen them. And so, but it's definitely something that we want to try to do moving forward. Grow relationships with people outside of our Slack. There's many people that maybe don't use Slack or maybe don't want to use it. Well, how do we engage, those that are outside of that? How do we engage communities? How do we engage younger people, teenagers? How do we engage older people? So there's definitely room for improvement in those areas and ways in which we can or ways in which we should figure out, how we might do that. Obviously, we want to continue to support the initiatives of our members, various projects that they've worked on that we are extremely proud of and happy that they've created. And so how do we continue to support that and strengthen that moving forward? And lastly, we want to kind of give people what they want. We did a LinkedIn post recently asking what people wanted to hear more of, and they resoundingly said, updates from the community. So we want to continue to improve our transparency, I guess you would say, in terms of what we're doing, what we kind of want to do moving forward, so that people can feel connected to the work that we're doing. But of course, it's never that easy. So how do we actually achieve this? Well, it's always going to be you. Natives in Tech, past, present, and future, has always been people like you, a native technologist, someone who is an ally, someone who is interested in these ideas and these projects and wants to contribute. This is we are a nonprofit organization composed mainly of volunteers. And so a lot of the things that I've mentioned about things that we've done, things that we're doing, and things that we want to do, though a lot of those things are volunteer based, and they are just initiatives of people in the community. And so Natives in Tech, the core of what it is and what it will be in the future, is going to be people like yourself that are listening right now and want to get involved and want to take these initiatives forward. So that's how the organization has, that's kind of how the organization founded itself. That's how we've grown. And I think that's how we'll continue to grow and improve in the future. So if you're someone that's interested in these issues, that wants to improve certain areas and wants to be involved in certain areas, feel free to reach out and ask us and let us know that you want to work on these particular causes that are of great concern to you. So hopefully that it kind of explained, what Natives in Tech is all about. Thank you for listening. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to our website, nativesintech.org. But yeah, thank you all. Thank you for attending this conference and listening to this talk. And Maro.